Hi everyone, I'm Hongzhe, also known as Morgan. I'm presenting for MIG 2025 Assessment Task 3, and this is an implementation plan I have worked with my team for our industry partner. As the title goes, Sustainable Financing Roadmap, ESG Debt Raising and Tourism Revenue Boost for Yara Range Council's Financial Resilience. So let's dive in and turn challenges into actionable opportunities. In this executive summary, I will give you a quick overview of the whole plan. So we will look at the council's big financial challenges, like they run out of money. And our focus is to find out a solution to raise debt to ESG bond. That means environmentally friendly bond while boosting income from tourism and rebuilding trust with the community. So the plan expects to raise 50 million of debt to develop agritourism and activate idle assets for income generating, adding 5 million a year from the new tourism fees and the project with the farmer, and to get the cash reserve back to 50 million in 3 years. So this builds directly on our team's early ideas, making sure everything is feasible and leads to a long-term financial sustainability. Now let's clearly explain the challenge. So what the problem are we facing and why it is happening. So the council depends too much on the rates and charges and the state government grants. It accounts for 19% of its income and the council cannot do anything about it. But the state government rules cap the rates increase below the raising cost like inflation and that lead to a huge 23.7 million of deficits and a 72 million drop in its cash reserve from 2023 to 2024. And on top of that, the natural disasters keep costing extra money to fix infrastructure and the public properties, and the unused buildings or parks, reserve facility, they're just losing value with depreciation and they're not generating any income. Plus, the council has to keep services at least 95% of the service level running for the entire community. And this all comes from the annual report showing how these issues could lead to even bigger problems like cutting services if we don't act quickly. So how do we solve this? My solution has three main parts. So first, risk debt through ESG debt using a SPV. That is a special company to handle the debt separately. So it is flexible and off the council's balance sheet, making the donation tax deductible and adding insurance for disasters. Secondly, start tourism project like charging small fees for parking or camping, and team up with the private companies for things like eco shuttles or working with the local farmers on farm tours or where we share the profit. And thirdly, we will use public relation and lobbying, be open and about how the debt is going to be used, and we are going to rebuild the trust between the council and the resident and the community through open talk, transparent disclosure, and push the state government for grants. And it's okay to do this debt plan. So I've chosen this focus because it directly fixes the deficit while creating new income. So outcome includes 50 million of debt being raised and 5 million of extra income from tourism each year. And the cash reserve should go back to 50 million in the end of year three and dropping the reliance on the rate and the grants to 80% in 3 years. So here we start the strategy details. It is a simple flow, prepare, launch, then integrate everything. So the method is broken into phases. So in the first phase, 6 to 12 months to get ready, then a full 2-year rollout, and all based on being sustainable, open with information, and working with everyone involved. So why does this fit? The council needs 50 million for new project, but his walls like money limits and politics, the ESG bonds give cheaper interest rates is around 0.5 to 1%. It's lower than the traditional bond, especially for green project that match the council's needs, like fixing things for climate change in this risky area or to prevent bushfire in the forest, since Yara Range is a disaster-prone region. And investors are mainly worried about disaster damaging and the properties being damaged and the council has to pay for it. So we've added insurance as a safety net to make the bonds more attractive and safer. And finally, direct debt is hard due to the rules and donations. They are not tax free, but an SPV could fix everything by keep the debt separately and allowing the partnership so the donation can be tax deductible. Next, we will tie the lobbying and rebuilding the public relation and the trust by integrating with the ESG step for an ongoing 2-year push on community support and policy changes. So why is this sustainable? Trust has been hurt by past money shortage and service worries. So we need clear sharing of the debt plan to show it's a good thing for the stronger infrastructure without raising the rates on the locals. We'll hold the forums and panels to get resident input and make sure they see the wins. Lobbying the Victorian government will get permission for things like tourism fees and access to funds like disaster-ready funds for steady help. This can turn tough politics into helpful partnership. So for the agritourism part, we're aiming for 20% of the income from our own effort. We'll add targeted fees like parking or camping at the busy spots for public-private partnership, the PPP for eco shuttles and the sites, and team up with the farmers on pilots like farm tours where we can split the profit maybe 10 to 20%. That is possible. And this spreads out income away from just the rate and charges, right? Using our 9 million yearly visitor to bring in around $5 million or more each year is pretty much possible, while keeping it easy on the locals with free passes, right? We'll also wake up the 117 unused parks, the idle reserve facilities and the buildings, we're going to turn them into money makers through fun community ideas like paid camping areas, like solar power spots, new energy generator, like, or rent the e-bags and online booking for upgraded house. This is all possible. So looking at the big picture, the plan has three phases: building the foundation, executing and activating project, then accessing and reflecting. As you see in this grand chart overview, it spans 36 months with clear timelines and connections between steps. In phase one, over months 1 to 9, we set up the ICPV for the 15 million of balance sheet debt with 2 million in startup cost. Create the ESG story and get the second party opinion, the SPO to check the debt is all green and trustworthy. And then begin the public relations sharing to explain the needs and start building community phase. Milestones is to get SPV registry hopefully by month 3 and finalize the ESG plan by month 6. And we'll hold the first forum by month 8. The resources we're going to use for this phase is the finance team. We'll list outside advisory like investment banks for consulting and using $1 million budget for legal and consulting. The CEO will watch over the SPV and the public relation officer runs the forms. What we're going to deliver is a draft bond document with starting service on trust. So in phase two, that is from months 10 to 24, we will issue the ESG bond for resilient building work, start tourism partnership like shadows and paid campaign in empty parks, and test the farmer ideas with shared profit at least over 20 places. The milestone is to see the bonds out by month 12. Hopefully, we're going to approve. And contract signed by 15 months, and first money coming in by 20. The resources like bring outside partners for the partnership and the farmers for test. We will use 30 million from that, maybe 60% on the building phases, the infrastructure, and 40% on starting project and public relations. The building environment director handles the upgrade, and the tourism officer works with the farmers. And what we're going to deliver is over 50 improved spot like solar e-back areas and 3 millions of early tourism cash. In phase three, that is months 25 to 36, if everything goes well, we do full checks on how things are going. So it's like reflection time. We're going to think about the result to make smarter choices and keep up with the public relation and lobbying for more grants if possible, while fine-tuning the income and debt plans. The milestone is it made review by month 28, so the debt check by 30, and the final report with decision by month 36. The resources are like the outside auditor for fair looks, plus the finance and the PR teams leading. With 0.8 million for LDs and service, the CEO reviews the farm and empty assets if they are working, and the council group decides on the debt, like whether the council should just pay it off or roll it over and over and over. Which option is better for the council? What we're going to deliver is the dashboard showing things like, 15% more from the farms, farm tours, and over 70% use for the assets, plus debt updates and the next plans based on what we're going to learn. So for resources, we need a full-time project manager at 150K a year, maybe a half-time public relation expert from outside, and 2 internal finance people for lobbying and partnership. The tech part include the tools for ESG checks at 200K, and the kits for tourism fees in parks at 500K through partnership. So budget-wise, $52 million over 3 years, with $50 million from the ESG bonds and $1 to $2 million for getting them started, plus $1 million for the farm tested at 25K to 100K each. So we'll split it into 60% on the building upgrade infrastructure, 20% on starting new projects, work with the farmers, etc., and 20% on the public relation management and the lobbying to the state government, and to keep things efficient and align with the regulatory requirement. So here are the main risks the council is going to face. So money risk, like failing to pay the debt from disaster, that is a high impact. So that's why we added the insurance safety nets. And the only risk could be we cannot find a counterparty who's willing to sign a contract with us, but we'll see how it goes. And the operation risk, like delays the partnership meeting fixed with step-by-step test starting small in 20 parks. Reputation risk, like people upset about the fees, unlikely. So we will use the open public relation talks to explain, and we will listen to the people's voice. And the backup plan is to get actual grants through lobbying if the income is, if the income from the farmer tourism is slow, and we'll do yearly check to change the cross, like cutting back if the farmer project doesn't work, and the metrics on the side shows how to keep the risk low and green. So for success in the short term, year one, we're expected to raise 15 million of debt and get 2 million from the fees and tests. We're going to boost the trust service by 15% and keep the debt cover over 1.5 times. In the long run, maybe year 2 to year 3, we'll cut the deficit by 50%, and we'll use the assets over 70%, like the parks at 80% full, hit the sustainability score over 85% from the guys, and do yearly audit, of course. And how are we going to check? So we're gonna set up the KPIs, like we're gonna check and track the KPI for every 3 months, and these KPI are advised by experts. Also, we need outside reviews and decide on the debt, like paying it off or keeping it rolled over based on those cover numbers. So lastly, this is a reference list, and thank you for listening.